today's tutorial, I'm gonna be explaining to you how you can arrange your sleepy lo-fi beat. By now, I know that most of you guys who are starting out with sleepy lo-fi gotten a good idea on how to build a sleepy lo-fi beat from scratch. You probably can get like 8 to 16 bars of absolute beautiful sounds, but then you don't know where to go from there. You're not sure how to make this into a full track or how to make it sound a little bit more professional. Well, that's what this tutorial is about. Okay, so this is a song that I made yesterday. It was around 4 o'clock in the evening and I just felt like making some sleepy lo-fi. And this is what came out of it. So I'm just gonna give you a short preview. Now, mind you, this isn't mixed. I've done some basic leveling, but other than that, I haven't really done much. So here's a short preview. Honestly, I'm pretty proud of how this turned out. I think it sounds very good, and when I compare it to how my sleepy lo-fi used to sound like a year back, I feel like I've grown so much. Let's start with the basics. What I usually do with lo-fi in general, I always start with the chord progression. Piano chord progression is usually the way I start out. This is the piano chord progression right here, the piano main. Most people would just call it a day after that, focus the entire beat around this chord progression. But then that's going to be boring. That will get boring after like a minute or something. So what you always have to remember to do is once you make a main chord progression, make a second chord progression that's similar to the first chord progression with slight variations. Now, if you look at here, right next to the piano main, I have a piano main 2, which is almost the same as the first chord progression, but then I just made a few changes so the listener has a bit of a variation and the lo-fi beat doesn't become boring. It's a little different melodically and even rhythmically. It'll keep the listener interested. And so that's what I've done with the piano. I've just alternated it. Piano main 2, piano main 2, piano main 2. When I make a lo-fi beat, there are two types of sounds. There are consistent sounds and there are inconsistent sounds. Consistent sounds are the sounds that are there in the song from the beginning to the end, with little to no change. Inconsistent sounds are the sounds which come in and leave every now and then to add a bit of variation. The piano main is obviously a consistent sound. It's there from the beginning to the end with a little bit of variation. Soft rain vinyl crackle you can see here, that is also consistent. The drums, consistent. The bass, consistent, and the pads are consistent. These 5 sounds, I guess, are the consistent sounds. Now, yeah, you can make changes to them. It depends on how you're making the song, but for me, this is how I usually do it. And it's a good way to start if you have no clue what you're doing. So I'm just going to continue the consistent sounds. Crystal piano. This is just to layer the main piano. I've just taken like the high notes of the main piano. This is what it sounds like. Now, this is actually an electric piano called the Mark I Crystals by Addictive Keys, and I have done a bit of processing on it. After that, we have a pad. And for the pad, I'm using Labs, the piano pad's radio preset. I love this preset. That's just the root note and the 5th note that I've inverted. And then we have the bass, which I'm not going to explain too much. It's just following the bass notes of the piano, like usual. And then the ambience and the drums. It's a pretty simple drum pattern. I'm using shakers instead of hi-hats because I felt that it was much more easy on the ears. And then every 2 and 4, I have a layer. I have a snare layer. The first one's a snap with some reverb. And the second one is not piano crystals. I renamed that by mistake. It's also some sort of snare with a reverb on it. Yeah, and those are the consistent sounds. And as you can see, the consistent sounds are here from the beginning to the end. Main piano, crystal piano, pads, bass, ambience, and drums. Once you actually have a good foundation and good understanding of how sleepy lo-fi arrangements work, you can start doing your own little thing and experimenting to see what sounds good. But like I said, this is a good way to start building your lo-fi songs. And now let's get into the inconsistent sounds. First off, I have this electric guitar. It is the Peel Guitar 2 by Labs. It's my favorite free electric guitar plugin. I love how it sounds. This is the progression that I made. Tried to make it sound as close to a real guitar as possible. Let me know in the comment section what you think of that. I'm pretty proud of what I made. It's also following the chord progression of the piano, but I'm just arpeggiating it. I'm also doing this neat thing where I'm panning the low notes to the left and the high notes to the right, which has a stereo effect and it makes the guitar sound much bigger than it actually is. Guitar just comes in every now and then, see? Now the second inconsistent sound is the fairy tale keys. I've named it based on the preset. This is from a synth called Black Keys 3. Now this is a free VST. This is what it sounds like. It acts as like a counter melody to the electric guitar if you listen to the two of them together. So right after the fairy tale and the electric guitar melody and counter melody ends, we move on to the main melody of the song, this vocal shot right here. Now, this isn't a plugin, it's a one-shot that I got from a lo-fi producer named Nlove Sample Pack. It's very good. And following the vocal shot, I have a sound called Weird Keys because I couldn't come up with a name for it. This is what it sounds like. Now, just like the electric guitar and the fairy tale keys before, the vocal shot and the weird keys are also acting like a melody and a counter melody. The vocal shot and the weird keys start right at the end of the fairy tale keys and electric guitar. That plays for about 8 bars, the two of them, and right over here I add in the electric guitar just for a bit of variation. And then right at the end of this, the electric guitar and the vocal shots come to an end. And the fairy tale keys begin, and I add this new pattern for weird keys. I didn't make anything new. I just took the last 4 notes, I cut it off, and I just have that repeating. I thought it sounded pretty cool. I'll just play the inconsistent sounds from the end, from the last bar. I thought it was a good way to end the song before the outro came. Let's move on to the transition sounds. The transition sounds are very important in sleepy lo-fi. It signals the end of a bar and the beginning of a new bar. The end of one sound, beginning of a new sound, whatever. So right at the beginning, I have my usual reverse crash, and I paired it up with this alien gun. You can hear a lot of alien guns in most sleepy lo-fi songs. It's very low in the mix, so it may be hard to hear it first, but you'll recognize. Once you do hear it, you're always going to pick up on it. Make sure that alien gun sound is on time with the tempo, and it will sound beautiful. So those are 2 of my transition sounds. And then what I like to do is, if you can see the pattern 12 over here, it's by Pigments 2. This is what it sounds like. I made it into a sample by pressing Ctrl-Alt-C, consolidating it. And then I automated the volume so that it rises and falls like a transition. So it'll be like this. Now you can do a lot more stuff. You can add reverb to it or like a ping pong delay or something and make it, make it crazy. But I felt like this was enough for me. And the reason why I put 2 of these things over here is because this is right where the main melody of the song comes in. So I felt like these 2 sounds were necessary to like announce its arrival or whatever, like for the king melody. So it'll sound like. And I did the same thing at the end of that melody. I play those 2 sounds again to signal the end of the melody. At the halfway point between that melody, I added the lasers. I did the same thing over here, just for a bit of variation. And now for the end, the transition I chose to go into the outro is a tape noise transition. Tape noise transitions are very important in sleepy lo-fi. They're very subtle, they're easy on the ears, and this is what they sound like. Tape noise transitions are good to signal the end of the song because they're very subtle. So it would sound like this. There's a lot of unique things you can do with transitions like that. Not only can you automate the volume, you can also automate the panning. So you can make the sound go from the left to the right. That'll be like an ear candy for the listener. For the intro, I have the same piano chord progression as the piano main, but I put it up an octave. Also, I made sure the velocity was very low compared to the piano main so that it's a very gentle sound, because high octave pianos have a very sharper sound than the lower octaves. So this is what it sounds like. As you can see, the pad is there from the beginning. The pad is what starts this song. And the ambience. It's also a really cool idea to sprinkle some of the melodies that are coming up later in the song in the intro. Just like 3 or 4 notes of it to give the listener a sort of heads up on what they're going to be expecting. Listen to what I did with the melodies here. Yeah, I guess that's it. A cheesy way I describe this kind of arrangement is like where the melodies have a conversation with each other. So let's say the fairy tale keys and the electric guitar, they're starting the conversation first, and then they finish what they have to say, and that's when the vocal shot and the weird keys start to talk. And it's just a on and off conversation. It's cheesy, I know, but then it works. Let me know what you guys think of this arrangement in the comments. Also, let me know if you guys are interested in any other topics. I would love to talk about it. So yeah, like and subscribe if you like this video. I hope you guys like it. I hope you found it useful, and I'll see you next week.